Michael,
Bill, thank
how
you
are
very
you?
much. I'm very well, thank you.
Very cool. Now, I'm going to hold this up because I hold up things. I like holding things up. There we go. This is the director's cut, which I was lucky enough to see of all of his films.
Right.
I know of all four of your films. I've been very lucky. Bachelor's Cottage, Ithaca, John Harvard, and now Perkins 28. Right off the bat, which one was the most fun?
The most fun to produce? I think that Ithaca was the most fun.
My favorite one.
Your favorite one, there you go.
Yep, okay.
Ithaca for me was very exciting because I love the Victorian era.
Okay.
And I love the history of America naturally and also the history of New England and the mercantile industry in New England.
Yep.
Certainly it was huge.
We were shoes and leather and hats and clothing, and that was the economy here for...
Exactly, right. And I was able to tap into that with regards to our location, because we got the opportunity to shoot at the Longfellow National Historic Site, which is on Brattle Street.
How the hell did you do that?
Well, we had shot Bachelor's Cottage at Adams House, which is a student dormitory in Harvard, and we made a very lovely film about World War I soldiers returning home. Very handsome, Edwardian, and also rich in details. And I used that to approach the site manager, Jim Shea.
You sold him with the first flick.
Absolutely.
That's the way to do it, yeah.
Because what we were trying to do, at least what I was trying to do at Harvard, was to begin making legitimate, at least semi-professional films on campus, using all the incredible resources on campus, the students, and they're enormously talented, as well as the locations at the university, as well as nearby, including the Longfellow House.
Okay.
And at that time, when I approached him, they were getting ready to have the bicentennial of Longfellow's birth. Right.
Great timing.
And great timing, yeah. So he totally welcomed the project, the crew, the cast into the house for 2 days, and we had unrestricted access.
You just
to
couldn't
shooting.
move anything.
We couldn't touch any we couldn't touch any of the paintings.
I remember you talking about this.
We could not sit on any of the furniture, but we could move around with complete ease.
And you did, and you can't see any of that prohibition making its way into the film.
No, because with that one restriction, I worked around that.
Yeah.
I brought in my own props.
Right.
I brought in my own furniture that they sat in.
If they've got to sit on something, you got to bring it in.
Absolutely,
Yep,
yes.
yep.
Which was a very small restriction compared to the fact that I was being given this opportunity to shoot in this enormous Victorian historic home of Henry Longfellow.
Can you imagine the cost if you had tried to put together a set that looked like that?
To build that set, for my resources, financial resources would have been impossible.
Impossible.
Because I needed a location that was rich in Victorian detail in order to create that atmosphere that I wanted.
And every piece in there is tens of thousands of dollars if you were to go out.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is a museum. It is a living museum, a historic home. And somehow the site manager looked at the first film, Bachelor's Cottage, really appreciated what I was trying to do, what my mission was with Fabular Films, and saw that I surrounded myself by really incredible acting talent. And he basically said, yes, 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 come in. And we had an incredible weekend of photography. Of course, I edited the film for months after that. And I was able to sculpt Ithaca into a really wonderful homage to Longfellow's poetry.
And you did, yes.
And I did.
Yeah.
But what was really incredible about that opportunity was that opened the door for my next opportunity, which was at the Cambridge Historical Society.
John Harvard.
John Harvard.
Yep.
Right after that.
Let's stop right there for one second.
Right.
I want to make sure we get the most important thing, the current project in.
Absolutely.
And then let's show that clip right now. This is from Perkins 28.
Correct.
Can you set up the clip we're going to see?
Well, Perkins 28 is very different than Ithaca.
Wicked different.
Wicked different. Ithaca certainly is a narrative.
Yep.
Perkins 28 is drawn from a real incident that occurred on the Harvard University campus.
Okay.
In 1920, basically the university brought together a secret court, a tribunal, to investigate.
Our Harvard did this?
Our Harvard University did that. Perhaps because there was a fear of the other at the time across America. There was a purging taking place, unfortunately, in the early 20th century. So this was a part of a larger atmosphere. So it did happen at Harvard. It could have happened in other institutions, and maybe it did that we're not aware of.
Well, this is actually just a microcosm of what was going on across the country. And
Absolutely.
It's a great look into that little piece.
Absolutely, exactly. So what happened was the court after seeing 37 individuals, most of whom were Harvard students, they asked 8 of whom to withdraw from the university. Basically, they were expelled from the university due to either their sexual orientation or their association with other homosexuals on campus.
Really?
So it was a purge. Some may say it was a witch hunt.
Yep.
And so the court members took not really extensive, but certain documents of all the testimony. And these documents were ferreted away into a box and basically not lost, but hidden for a very long time. Yeah.
Purposefully hidden.
Purposely hidden, perhaps, until the Harvard Crimson, the student newspaper, found them and wrote articles that were published in November 2007 that exposed the secret court of 1920.
And that's where the concept came from.
Well, exactly.
Okay.
For me, what happened was I had just finished producing John Harvard.
This is the longest setup to a film ever, Frank.
Well, the connection really fast is that John Harvard was a neglected character
Right.
in the university. And then these individuals, these students, were also extremely neglected and marginalized by being asked to leave the university.
Yep.
So I was basically on a kick of pursuing neglected historical characters and allowing them to speak their story. And certainly with regards to the Perkins boys, to finally speak out because their voices were silenced.
I hear you.
And this film documents the testimony of 8 students and 1 tutor
Okay.
who were asked to withdraw.
Okay.
And what we're about to see is a montage, basically, of all the individuals and the court members as well, and how adamant the court was in the investigation.
Very cool. Let's take a look at that right now. We're looking at somebody who's taking the side of the underdog. Oh, that's what I do all the time. I like that. So right now, a clip from Perkins 28.
That's Cyril Wilcox.
We should like to know about your relationship with the late Mr. Wilcox. Were you his academic tutor?
I'm not sure I know.
Certainly know if you were naked with another man. Have you ever been naked with another man?
They approached me and I was drunk. Before now, it's never been so.
Your peers indicate that it was you who tricked Mr. Wilcox into revealing intimate details about his life.
Have you been queer with a man?
No.
Have you been queer with a boy?
No.
Never screwed around with boys. Why's coming to Harvard make every man queer?
Enough! This is not a debate. We do not have time to investigate every man on campus or follow him into these cafes and hotel lobbies where this sort of thing lurks.
This is unjust. I've done nothing wrong. I'm the least involved.
I've come to the conclusion that homosexuality is more serious than sexual intercourse. In fact, I think it's dangerous and ought to be investigated.
I admit there was one act of indecency. But just one. Only one.
Therefore, like zookeepers who must avoid the incurable specimen, we must remove you from our sight and send you down, Mr. Cummings.
But I'm not an animal.
Please refrain from excitement.
But life is just too beautiful, don't you think? Like the fairy tale says, be bold, but not too bold.
When I make a film,
Okay.
whether it's a Puritan film like John Harvard, a Victorian film like Ithaca, or an Edwardian film like Perkins 28, I try to go back into that time period and imagine myself as a filmmaker then with the tools that I have now, digital photography, right?
Yep.
But at the same time with the film vocabulary that they may have had at that time.
Daguerreotype, one color.
Absolutely,
Yeah, exactly.
right.
Yeah.
So in 1920, we were coming right out of the silent era and right into sound films.
Talkies.
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 Exactly,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
So what I wanted to do was I said to myself, as a challenge as a filmmaker, outside of the challenge of producing it and tapping into this incredible story, but for me, I wanted to tell the story as if not only was I a fly in the wall in the room during the court testimony, but also if this film was made in 1920, what would it look like? It would be
Oh,
a bridge.
that
A bridge
makes more
between.
sense. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So it's a bridge between a silent era film as well as the incoming talkie films, and of course, no color.
No color.
Very important, right? And when I did John Harvard, I gave myself the same challenge. I said, how would a Puritan make a film?
Yep.
And perhaps a Puritan would make a very austere film,
Yep.
very slow, very silent, and very centered,
Yep.
right? So the film vocabulary changes per film because I need to be authentic and sincere to not only the historical characters, but also how they would have been interpreted by a fellow artist at the time.
I
Very
haven't
important
noticed,
to
and
me.
I usually look for things like this, by the way, and this is totally aside from the art making. After you finished the films, did you notice any anachronisms? Was there anybody wearing a watch? I mean, did anything silly that you noticed afterwards?
Well, I'm sure there were. I can't think of any now, and maybe they snuck into the film, so I haven't.
No, I'm going to have to
watched-
look again for
and-
that. Yeah,
as
yeah.
myself as well. I can't think of anything. I know that sometimes in the background there may have been a modern emergency fire switch
Right,
that,
right.
that with a little CGI I was able to take out. I think during Perkins, especially the last boy that we saw, in the background was, I believe, a light switch. Exactly. That I had to mask out
Yep.
very easily. But since the film is very centered, the framing is very much like a silent film. The camera doesn't swerve around. There's no handheld photography.
No.
I was able to impose
Thank
the
goodness,
mask
because
there.
under moving film, that would have been a nightmare to graphic out.
Well, with my budget.
Yeah. Now let's talk about
Absolutely.
that. We only have 30 seconds left. Can
All
you
right.
imagine that?
Okay.
You must spend $1 bazillion to make these films.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I
Explain what-
really make them.
He's a
as-
member here at Somerville Community
I am,
Access Television,
right.
and that I believe is all shot with gear from here.
Yes, absolutely. The resources here are amazing. But also, when I make a film, as you see with Perkins,
Yep.
I try to start off with a very simplistic palette
Yep.
and a simplistic photography. Certainly, whatever's important to the story. This story, I actually needed 2 cameras, which we had here,
Sure.
and lighting gear, but not very complicated.
Nope.
So if I needed something very extensive like a dolly, I may have had to search for, if not rented it.
Or a
But
shopping cart or something could have sufficed.
True,
Yep.
I've never done that,
Yep.
but I could in
I
the
have.
future. You
Yep.
have,
Yeah, I have.
But I try to keep
It
the
doesn't
cost
work,
down.
by the way.
No.
The wheels.
They shake too much, right?
yeah.
No, these films I make are very artistic, and they're not so focused on the technicalities of the image, but more the artistry behind it, the atmosphere, the mood, the language within the script.
You do stay true to your story.
Thank you very much.
You're
And I
very
spend
welcome.
all my energy, which is money,
Yep.
one would think,
That-
on
Our time and effort is the most thing you can put into your project.
Exactly, yes. And they say that this is financially perhaps low budget filmmaking, but in terms of artistry and skill, it's very high up there.
Yep.
And I spend many, many hours, certainly in researching a story like Perkins 28, making sure that the script is true to the court documents. I spend many hours in the rehearsal with the student performers,
Yep.
because this film is about Harvard students who are asked to withdraw. And here I'm casting real Harvard students to play their forebears.
And you're a graduate, so the last thing you
extent,
want to
that's
do
correct.
is make a boo-boo and have it come right back at you because there's
Correct.
lots of eyes that can look at
Yes.
that.
Well, this is Harvard history.
Yep.
This is Cambridge history.
Yep.
It's very important. And it's also, this kind of story of Perkins 28 is relevant in 2010 with the possible review, if not repeal, on the ban of homosexuals in the military.
Don't ask, don't tell. It's going to be gone.
Well, let's
Maybe,
hope.
maybe,
Exactly.
maybe, yeah.
But when people start to review Don't Ask, Don't Tell, they will obviously go back in time to see other witch hunts that may have occurred either within the military institution or in other institutions. And here, unfortunately, at Harvard University, we did have an incident where students were asked to leave because of their disclosure, their openness of their homosexual orientation and their conduct. Don't Ask, Don't Tell prohibits that disclosure.
We're out of time. Hopefully,
That's
people
fine.
Hopefully, people can learn from the past through
Absolutely. Well,
Michael's film.
Perkins 28 will be screening at the Cambridge Historical Society on March 24th,
And your exhibit goes through.
March 3rd in Cambridge at Harvard University.
Very cool.
Right.
As we go to break, we're going to take a look at another clip, and because it's my show, I picked the one I wanted. So let's look at a clip from Ithaca, again by Michael Van Devere. If you want to find out more about Michael, he's got a very strange address. Just Google Michael Van Devere, and you'll find him. He's all over the web, IMDb. You can find him. But right now, let's look at a clip right now from Ithaca.
my grief on the sea, how the waves of it roll, for they heave between me and the love of my soul, abandoned, forsaken, to grief and to care. Will the sea ever waken?
William?
Relief from despair. My grief and my trouble, would he and I were in the province of Leinster or county of Clare, where I and my darling, oh heart bitter wound, on board of a ship for America bound. On a green bed of rushes, all last night I lay, and I flung it abroad with the heat of the day, and my love came behind me. He came from the south, his breast to my bosom, his